Have you ever wondered how a single man could ignite a revolution that would shake the foundations of an empire? In the mid-19th century, India was under the rule of the British East India Company, a powerful entity that held sway over the vast, diverse and rich landscape of the Indian subcontinent. The company's rule was not benign. It was marked by economic exploitation, cultural insensitivity, and political manipulation. The people of India, though divided by myriad languages, religions, and customs, were united in their growing dissatisfaction with this foreign yoke. Enter Mangal Pandey, a name that would soon become synonymous with resistance and revolt. Born into a humble family, Pandey joined the British East India Company's army, a decision that would set him on a collision course with the empire he served. The first spark of this impending inferno was lit by a seemingly innocuous change in military equipment. The British introduced new Enfield rifle cartridges, rumored to be greased with cow and pig fat. This was offensive to both Hindu and Muslim soldiers, as cows are sacred to Hindus and pigs are considered impure by Muslims. The soldiers were expected to bite off the paper cartridges to load the rifles, a direct violation of their religious beliefs. Mangal Pandey, a man of strong convictions and deep religious faith, was one of the many soldiers deeply affected by this disregard for local customs and beliefs. But unlike many others, Pandey was not content to grumble in silence. The spark within him had been lit, and the flames of revolt were soon to follow. This spark would become a raging fire, culminating in the 1857 revolt, a watershed moment in India's struggle against British colonial rule. So who exactly was this man Mangal Pandey, who dared to defy an empire? Stay with us as we delve deeper into the life of this extraordinary man and the revolution he sparked, a revolution that would reshape the world's largest democracy. Let's delve into the life of Mangal Pandey, the man who lit the fuse of the Indian rebellion. Born in the early part of the 19th century in a small village near Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh, Mangal Pandey's early life was rather unremarkable. Destiny, however, had other plans for this young man. In the year 1849, at the tender age of 22, Mangal Pandey was recruited into the British East India Company's army. The army at the time was a melting pot of cultural and religious diversity, a reflection of the Indian subcontinent itself. Yet, it was also a place where the sepoys, or Indian soldiers, were subjected to the whims and fancies of their British commanders. Pandey, a devout Hindu, was no exception. His life in the army was marred by the blatant disregard the British had for the cultural and religious sentiments of their Indian sepoys. The introduction of the new Enfield rifles in 1857 was the final straw. The cartridges, rumored to be greased with pig and cow fat, were seen as an affront to both Hindu and Muslim sepoys. For a devout Hindu like Pandey, the very thought of biting into the cartridge was sacrilegious. His resentment towards the British was not just limited to the disrespect of his religious beliefs. The socio-political climate of the time further fueled his anger. The doctrine of lapse, the annexation of Indian states, and the imposition of British customs and laws were all seen as a direct threat to the Indian way of life. It was this growing dissatisfaction, this deep-seated resentment, that led Mangal Pandey to challenge the might of the British Empire. His rebellion was not just a reaction to the Enfield cartridge controversy, it was a manifestation of the larger Indian sentiment against British rule. Fueled by a deep sense of injustice, Pandey was about to make a stand that would echo through history. His name would soon become synonymous with bravery, rebellion, and the fight for freedom. But that's a story for another time. For now, let's go back to the year 1857, to the day when Mangal Pandey dared to challenge the British Empire. The 29th of March, 1857 marked a turning point in Indian history. It began not with a grand declaration or a massive battle, but with a single act of defiance from a lone soldier, Mangal Pandey. Stationed at the Barakpur cantonment near Calcutta, Pandey was a sepoy, an Indian soldier serving under British command. But on this day, Pandey would shed his role as a compliant soldier and instead choose to challenge his oppressors. The morning started like any other, but Pandey, armed with a musket, openly rebelled against his British superiors. He stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest, his mind filled with a single purpose. His rebellion was not just an act of personal defiance, but a symbol of a nation's yearning for freedom. Pandey pulled the trigger, firing the first shot, a shot that echoed far and wide, reverberating through the ranks of the Indian soldiers in the British Army. This moment, this single act, was the spark that lit the fuse of rebellion. It was a call to arms that resonated with thousands of sepoys across the country. In the days that followed, the unrest among the Indian soldiers grew. The single act of defiance by Pandey had laid the groundwork for a widespread revolt. It was a revolt against the oppressive British rule, a revolt against the unfair treatment of Indian soldiers, a revolt against the disregard for their traditions and beliefs. And the rebellion spread like wildfire, from Barrackpore to Meerut, from Delhi to Lucknow, engulfing vast swathes of the country. The sepoys, once obedient soldiers, now stood united in their fight for freedom. They rose up against their British commanders, their courage fueled by the fiery spirit of Pandey's act. Pandey's actions ignited a flame, setting the stage for a full-scale revolt. His name would forever be etched in the annals of Indian history as the man who dared to challenge the might of the British Empire, the man who fired the first shot of the revolt of 1857. Pandey's act of rebellion was a spark that ignited a powder keg of discontent. The year was 1857, and the Indian subcontinent was a simmering cauldron of resentment against the British East India Company's rule. The spark, as we know, came from Mangal Pandey, a soldier in the company's army. His act of defiance became a beacon for the masses, a rallying cry for those who yearned for freedom. The 1857 revolt, often referred to as India's first war of independence, was a widespread uprising against the company's rule. It was a revolt that saw participation from all walks of life, from disgruntled soldiers to discontented nobility, from the disillusioned peasantry to the marginalized artisans. Key figures emerged during this period, figures like Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, Kunwar Singh of Bihar, and Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal emperor. Each played a crucial role in the struggle, their stories adding rich layers to the tapestry of the revolt. Pandey's act of defiance was the spark, yes, but it was these figures and the countless unnamed who fanned the flames, who took up arms against what they saw as an oppressive and exploitative regime. Yet despite their combined efforts, the revolt was brutally suppressed by the British. The company's military might, combined with its strategic alliances with certain Indian princely states, proved too overwhelming. The aftermath of the revolt saw a significant shift in British policy. The power of governance was transferred from the East India Company to the British Crown, marking the beginning of direct colonial rule. This was the British Empire's attempt to stabilize the situation, to regain control. Yet, the echoes of the revolt, the spirit of resistance it had awakened, continued to reverberate across the subcontinent. Though the revolt was crushed, the spirit of resistance it embodied lived on. The 1857 revolt may not have achieved its immediate goal of overthrowing British rule, but it sowed the seeds of a freedom movement, a movement that would eventually bear fruit almost a century later. Though the revolt of 1857 did not immediately free India from British rule, it left an indelible mark on the nation's history. The uprising, ignited by the defiance of a soldier named Mangal Pandey, was a turning point in India's struggle for independence. Mangal Pandey, an ordinary soldier who dared to challenge the might of the British Empire, became a symbol of Indian resistance. His courage and determination inspired countless others to stand up against foreign rule. His name became synonymous with rebellion, and his story was passed down through generations, inspiring future freedom fighters and leaders in their quest for India's independence. The Revolt of 1857, often described as India's first war of independence, also left a profound impact. It represented the first large-scale rebellion against British rule, highlighting the widespread discontent and resistance among the Indian populace. The revolt shook the foundations of the British Empire in India and marked the beginning of the end of their colonial rule. In the years that followed, the memories of the revolt and the bravery of fighters like Mangal Pandey became powerful symbols of resistance. They served as a constant reminder of the determination and courage of the Indian people in their struggle for freedom. Popular culture too has played a significant role in keeping the legacy of Mangal Pandey and the 1857 revolt alive. From films and books to plays and songs, Pandey's story and the events of the revolt have been depicted and celebrated in various forms, ensuring that their memory continues to inspire and resonate with generations. The legacy of Mangal Pandey and the 1857 revolt is not just about a historical event or a brave soldier. It is about the spirit of resistance, the fight for freedom, and the power of an individual to inspire change. Mangal Pandey's defiance and the 1857 revolt remind us that sometimes it takes just one voice to start a revolution.